John Lynch just throwing chum out in the water at the owners' meetings. Just everything out of his mouth is worth talking about today.
Yeah, so I actually got to catch a little bit of the interview. Grant was kind enough to post it on his YouTube. So I have a little better idea and a little more context into what the questions were and what the quotes were. And I will say that they are probably a little bit more just honest in him being forthcoming, the way the questions are asked and the way he speaks on the topic, and a little less as headliney as the original tweets seem to indicate. Nonetheless, Rob, you're absolutely right.
How dare you downplay the look? We need hot takes, Vish. This is earth-shattering news. Don't be rational. Don't be calm. Come on now.
I think the weird thing to me is that he didn't have to say anything.
Mm-hmm.
I understand why he said what he said, but at the same time, I did think this was a situation for where it was in John Lynch's best interest just to say, hey, we like all the quarterbacks that we have, which is true. He said that multiple times in this interview as well. And the reality of the situation is 2 out of 3 aren't healthy. So we're not going to make any definitive statements or statements about the quarterback situation until those guys are healthy. We're ready to see it play itself out this offseason. And he did say something along those lines when he ultimately said all 3 quarterbacks are going to be competing for that starting job. But when he said Brock Purdy is ahead, and then Matt Mayoko asked him actually this question specifically, you will enjoy this, Rob, because you would have wanted this question to be asked. He said, isn't it, what would you tell people who look at this situation and say you gave up that much for Trey Lance, you gave that much up, and now a 7th-round rookie after 7 games has seemingly unseated him? And he said, hey, that's crazy, but as I've always said, draft position doesn't matter. We don't believe in draft position. That doesn't mean anything. It comes down to what you do on the field. And right now, what Brock did on the field has him ahead of Trey, is basically what he ended up saying. But then in so many words, he also said, we love Trey Lance. We think Trey Lance can do X, Y, Z.
Yeah, sure they
all
do.
of that. So he said both. Yeah, he said both.
Let me play some of the comments in case anybody missed it. And this video comes courtesy of NBC Sports Bay Area, who tweeted it out. Here's some of what Lynch said about the quarterback situation.
I think Brock has earned the right with the way he played that he's probably the leader in the clubhouse at that. I'll let Kyle make those kind of decisions, but I know when we talk, I think Brock's probably earned that right to be the guy. If we were to line up, he'd probably take that first snap. And we're really excited about where Trey is at with his progress from his injury. He's been working really hard, and love the opportunity to be able to bring in Sam Darnold and his skill set. We think it's a really good fit. And,
his skill set.
We like that. We like that room a lot.
Yeah, he looks like he likes the room a lot. He looked thrilled there. Now he didn't touch his face, which that's pretty good. Although he wasn't talking about Trey Lance, he was talking about Brock Purdy. So maybe that's why. Here's the thing I have an issue with, Vish, and you kind of said it. He's talking out of both sides of his mouth. John Lynch, March 1st, from the scouting combine with Matt Mayoko, said, we believe completely all Trey Lance needs to do is play, and he'll make all the improvements he needs to make. And today he said, the second we get the opportunity to take it away from Trey Lance, we're going to do it. That's the part that drives me nuts. Which is it? If you like Trey that much, then go with Trey. If you don't like Trey that much, I think that's crazy, but just go off of it. Stop telling me how much you like this guy when it's clear everything that you're doing shows me that you don't like him. That's what drives me nuts a little bit. That's what frustrates me a little bit. As opposed to Vish's internet,
hates me.
Which is
this
also
thing hates
frustrating
me. Right.
Go
ahead, sorry.
How can Lynch say March 1st, all Lance has to do is play and we know he'll improve? We still believe that. And today he's saying, well, Brock's the guy. Like, which is it? If all Trey needs is opportunity, then why are you so eager to take the opportunity away from it?
It's because the Niners like doing this thing where they like being honest to the media, but they also don't like saying anything that leads to necessarily controversy. So they always give like half truths. So he says like 50% of what he believes, but doesn't say the rest of it, leaves it open to interpretation. We all speculate. And one of Jay Glazer, Rappaport, or Schefter, Sunday morning when everybody is worrying about the game, will slip in the other 50% of the details in later. Like, they're always going to tell us the truth at some point, but it just won't be right then and there at the moment. But I do want to add this, Rob. John Lynch sounded hungover in that interview.
Would you
did he
be
not?
shocked? Would you be shocked?
No.
Let me just say, and don't be prepared. Don't be surprised, I should say, when Kyle speaks tomorrow on Tuesday. He may appear to be in the same state. I'll just say that.
Right. I heard the owners' meetings gets quite.
Yeah, it does. First of all, they're at the Biltmore Hotel in Arizona, which, let's just say, it's not a Holiday Inn Express, okay? I've been there at the owners' meetings. It is incredibly swanky. There's parties all around. There's alcohol all around. Like, the billionaires are, they know how to do it right. So I'll just say that there's a lot of that going on. This is the thing to me, because I like Steph Sanchez and Jason Aponte. I love them to death. I respect them. They were like, hey, this isn't a big deal. I completely disagree. And here's why. They had the opportunity, like you said earlier. They didn't have to say this. When they were asked before Brock had surgery who the starting quarterback is, Kyle Shanahan said he's never even thought about it before, right? They didn't say anything. They just totally passed. If they wanted to do that again, they could have, because the same thing still applies. Both guys are hurt. One guy's going to be ready before another guy. We're going to work. It'll work itself out, essentially. Yeah. But they didn't say that. They said, it's Brock's job. And so, like, that to me is what's different. That to me is the revelation. Because, again, we don't know anything about Brock Purdy's recovery. Like Lynch said today, they're hoping he's ready to go at training camp. That's insane. Training camp is 4 months from now. Brock Purdy's not even supposed to be able to attempt to throw a pass until 3 months after the surgery. We're less than 3 weeks away, or 3 weeks removed from the surgery. It was 17 days ago. Now all of a sudden he's going to be back for training camp.
Yeah, and that's the point to me. It's not as much what he said, Rob. It's the constant kind of contradiction of like, and even between the questions, if you noticed, right, when he first said that like Brock is the leader in the clubhouse, he kind of left it open saying, hey, it's just based on how he played the 7 games, but like as if it was wide open there for Trey to come back and re-seize the opportunity he never actually lost. He got hurt, right? But then when Mayoko asked that follow-up question and pressed him on it just a little bit, he was a little bit more definitive, saying, nah. You saw what he did for 8 games. He's ahead of him right now. That's just the reality of the situation. It's such an interesting offseason, isn't it? Is it not a 49ers offseason if we're not talking this much about the quarterbacks? And now we've added this kind of 3-way competition. The 49ers decided 2 quarterbacks competing and, taking all of our attention wasn't enough. They wanted to add a 3rd guy in there. And now Sam Darnold is going to be, we're going to have as they call them, the Trey fans, the Purdy fans, and now the Darnold fans too. It's going to be an incredible offseason, isn't it?
And I was told that Sam Darnold was just QB3. I was shouted at. Oh, it was only QB. You're such an idiot. You're stirring everything up. Yeah, turns out, no, he's in the mix, because when coaches trade for quarterbacks that they like, they generally put them in the mix. Sign me too, watching on my Twitch page at Stats on Fire. If you got 3 QBs, you don't have one. I absolutely agree. I mean, the idea that he's going to be throwing it and ready to go at camp, Vish, that's like stunning to me. That is not even close to everything they said and everything we heard about the recovery and timeline for this injury. Stefania Bell did an interview with our Steph Sanchez. She basically said the same thing. 3 months throwing, hopefully around 6 months back. Maybe later, maybe less, but certainly not ready to go in 4 months.
Kyle Posey did an interview with Nick Mullins' surgeon, right?
Yep.
And he talked about how it would also be the same timeline you mentioned to take him to throw. And so I think the interesting thing for me, Rob, with that is, are they putting too much pressure on Brock Purdy too? Because it sounds like their offseason plan, the way they talk about these quarterbacks, I don't know, maybe I'm reading too much into it. And if I am, then you feel free to check me. But I feel like the way they talk about their offseason plan is that they hope it's Purdy That's who they want to be the starter.
yeah,
That's who they're hoping to be the starter. And are they putting too much pressure on him to recover from an injury? I remind you, Rob, Kyle Shanahan was on the Washington staff with his father when Robert Griffin essentially probably came back too fast from his ACL, remember? He tried to do the Adrian Peterson, which was an unheard of recovery until Adrian Peterson did it in 2012 and won the MVP. And then in 2013, he came back and he was never the same quarterback because he came back from his ACL too quickly. I don't know if Robert Griffin forced that. I don't know if the Washington football team, pushed that on him. I have that question a little bit about Brock Purdy too. Is it fair for a second-year player who's not going to have the entire offseason? All NFL players talk about how much they grow from offseason 1 to offseason 2 because offseason 1, half the offseason you're spending prepping for the draft. It's not the same thing as training for the next season, which they do in that second offseason. He is not going to be training. He is going to be rehabbing the entire time. There's a difference. There's a reason. George Kittle has talked about this. He doesn't get surgery in the offseason because he wants to train. He wants to get better. He doesn't want to rehab. So there's a difference. He's going to be rehabbing this offseason. Is it fair to put that onus on him for him to be coming back? John Lynch said that they've planned for this and insulated the quarterback room that way between Trey Lance and Sam Darnold for that. But, is Trey Lance and Sam Darnold insulation from that standpoint? I'm not sure. Sam Darnold gets hurt a lot. Sam Darnold also he's shown talent. I think you and I disagree there. You don't think anything of Sam Darnold. Yeah, I don't think highly of Sam Darnold, but there is talent that I think could be unlocked and could be harnessed, and he could be successful in this offense. Now, there's a long way to go for him to be that player too, but I'm just saying it exists. And then same thing with Trey Lance as well. There's obviously a lot of talent for him that could be realized and could be unlocked and could be harnessed as well. So I'm a little bit confused. He also mentioned that Sam Darnold and Trey Lance are going to get ample reps this offseason to be able to prove that. So does that mean that they're just going to go with 3 quarterbacks that are Darnold, Purdy, and Lance? I would prefer if they drafted a guy given their quarterback history of injury and given the fact that Purdy got hurt twice last year. Lance has been hurt in short time just about every time he's had the opportunity to play. And Sam Darnold doesn't have a history of clean health either.
I have a comment I want to get to. Hopefully I don't forget it, but we got a chat here from Corey. Thank you very much, Corey. Ultimately, we still know nothing. Don't know if Lance will have progressed. We have no idea when and what Brock Purdy will look like. Situation is fluid at best. Absolutely. And that's kind of what's surprising is that Lynch is talking like it's less fluid than it is, or at least than we believe it is. Like the training camp thing is wild to me. 4 months after surgery, he's going to be ready to go.
I think Nick Mullins was throwing around the same timeline, but the ready to go, he didn't answer that question. If you noticed, Rob, he said ready to go. He said, I don't even know what ready to go means. So does ready to go mean he's back throwing? Does it mean he's back practicing? Does that mean he's limited? There's so many different definitions for ready to go too with Brock Purdy.
Yes, and Stefania mentioned this too in her interview with Steph, which is on Steph's YouTube page at 49 Carats if you want to go check that out. And I thought it was a good point by Stefania. We talk about return to play, return to play, return to play. What we really should be talking about is return to performance. That's what you really want. Just getting Brock Purdy out on the field. I mean, hell, technically he played with the UCL torn in half. So we don't want return to play. We want him to be able to come back and throw the way he used to throw and perform the way he used to perform. And I find it incredibly hard to believe that he's going to be ready to play at training camp 4 months removed from this surgery.
Yeah, and the injury is severe too. We're not even talking about whatever mental demons he might have to go through because of the injury. And I understand this is not a topic that people like talking about because it involves a lot of speculation. I agree. And ultimately, none of us really know. But I do think it's a scenario that we have to discuss because it's part of what could happen this offseason. I think a lot of people are resigning to the fact that, hey, he's going to be back. He's going to be the same exact Brock Purdy. June 28th, whatever, he's going to be ready to July 28th, excuse me. He's going to be ready to throw. He's going to walk into practice and he's going to kill it again. I don't necessarily look at it that way, Rob. How many different timelines were we told on D4, Jet McKinnon? This is a fluid thing, and he's got a very, very serious injury.
Cam Inman described it as, quote, a career-saving procedure. And it's funny, the longer we've gone from this injury, the worse it's gotten.
Right.
First it was, oh, he's got a torn ligament. He's going to have surgery. He's going to be back. Then Mike Silver described it as a, quote, severe injury. Now here we are. Cam Inman described it as literally career saving. But yet that's the guy that you're giving the keys to. The whole thing, there's so much fluidity to it. There's so much unknown to it.
You know what the crazy thing is, Rob? If Brock Purdy was healthy, I would have agreed with every single thing John Lynch said today. It made sense.
I could understand it. Yes.
It all makes sense. Everything he said today, if he's healthy, makes sense. I feel like because he's not healthy, John Lynch had the ultimate get out of jail free card to just say, hey, our quarterback situation is this right now. We clearly got Sam Darnold because we don't have any healthy quarterbacks at the moment. Trey's going to be the one that's healthy. Him and Sam will compete this offseason, and we will readdress everything once Brock's fully recovered and fully healthy. It also takes the pressure on Brock Purdy, off of Brock Purdy, to, really push himself and make sure that he is coming back 100% healthy as well. Because I feel like, the way Shanahan and Lynch have talked about it this entire offseason, when Shanahan before Brock Purdy even got a second opinion in their end of the season presser, Shanahan was already saying he's going to be back in 6 months. The cool thing about the surgery is that he throws after 3 months, all of that. And he ended up getting surgery a month and a half after those statements were made. But Shanahan dismissed any other idea at that time. He said that's what's going to happen. So they seem to be putting some public pressure on Brock Purdy as well to be able to get himself healthy on an injury that Mike Silver described as extremely severe and Cam Inman described as a career-saving procedure. So now that we have those two things out of the way, Rob, I feel like it was the easiest thing for him to say, we'll just address it when everyone's healthy. We'll address it when people are healthy. We can't say anything right now. And yet he did say something. To me, the only reason he said that, Rob, is because he believes it. He said it because he believes it. That's it.
And then there's this, and this, I didn't think of this on my own. Someone that I was chatting with on the side, and I didn't ask them if I could give their name, so I'm not going to, but I just want to let it out there that I didn't think of this because I like to give credit as much as I can. Lynch has sort of put Kyle in a bind now because he's addressed it. So now Kyle has to address it because his general manager talked about it. And so he's kind of forcing Shanahan to either fall in line or agree or correct me publicly, and essentially pants me in public. Is there a little bit of a power struggle going on in San Francisco?
I don't know if there's a power struggle, but I think you and I asked, it's funny you bring this up now, Rob. I wonder who this person is because I asked you this question on the phone and you were like, nah. I was like, I asked you, do you think Lynch is putting pressure on Shanahan to stop being so indecisive with the quarterbacks?
Well, but there's actual pressure and then there's public pressure. Actual pressure, he can't do anything because Shanahan hired Lynch. But public pressure, I mean, it's going to be interesting. First question to Kyle. Kyle, John said Brock Purdy hopes he's ready to go in training camp. Do you agree? Kyle, John said Brock Purdy's the leading candidate to be the starter when he's healthy. Do you agree? Because specifically, Kyle's the one that said he hadn't thought about the starting quarterback. So now Kyle has to address this.
So there's two ways to look at it, right? Now, the theory you're suggesting could be based on the fact that some people seem to suggest that there's a little bit of a divide between Shanahan and Peters on Trey Lance versus John Lynch on Trey Lance. And they seem to think that that's where some of the Mac Jones things come from. I have not, that's what the rumor mill says. I don't know any of that personally, so I'm not going to pretend. I'm just saying that that's a rumor out there. The other thing is that Lynch and Shanahan simply agreed before the owners meeting that they were just going to show confidence in Purdy because maybe they were trying to quell the controversy a little bit, Rob. I wonder if they failed. Right, they failed completely, but I wonder if their idea was, hey, if we say Purdy's in charge or whatever, nobody's going to argue with us because he played so well for 8 games, and there's going to be a little bit less of questions as we go into this offseason with Lance and Darnold competing because Purdy's always going to be looming over them rehabbing on the side, so it won't be as controversial, as if it was if Lance and Darnold are duking it out for what everybody knows to be the starting job. So I wonder, I know that's a pretty outlandish theory, Rob, but I wonder if that was their mindset. And it's not like the most invalid mindset. It didn't make sense and it didn't work, but I wonder if that was kind of their thinking there as well.